She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Oh, duh. Thank you for that joke, Melissa. Welcome, listeners. Welcome to episode 86 of 5 Lemons Laughing. I'm Morgan. We're missing our beloved Amanda today due to internet issues. Joined here with Melissa, Penny, and Drusilla. So we're 4 Lemons Laughing today, and we're talking about our purpose. I think we've all entertained the question of why am I here? These deep philosophical questions that we all contemplate from time to time. So that's really what we're digging into today. It's a direct carryover from our last couple of episodes about values, and that can really help us to clarify and define what our life purpose is. Just clarifying what's important to us, what brings us fulfillment and joy. And that will definitely help us to discern what our purpose is. I think sometimes it can feel daunting to clarify what our purpose or what our dharma is. So yeah, let's dive into the topic. Penny, do you have anything to add about this?
Well, I just thought it might be a good idea just to define purpose, because it's actually, this can be a really big topic, because I know that I have different purposes depending on the situations that I'm involved in. So purpose is really the underlying reason or the intention for which you're doing something. It's like what. Yeah, I like it when people ask, like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, why do you get out of bed? Like, what is it that has you, jumping out of bed and going, yay, it's another day. So that if you're doing that, yay, it's another day versus, oh shit, it's another day. If you're doing the yay, it's another day, you're probably doing what you love and probably living your purpose. And so that's it's just all the motivating factors that guide us, all the intentions that we set that are in alignment with our values, that are in alignment for who we want to be, how we want to show up in the world. That's our purpose, and it guides us if we're willing to listen and let it guide us, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a simple, I guess, definition of purpose. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I would say that this could be a really big issue for a lot of people. Especially, the big issue, like, how am I going to die? When am I going to die? There's a death is out there. So let's make this life as meaningful as it can. And so people can get really consumed, myself included, with like, what is it? What am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. This life has to mean something. It needs to mean something for me and the world. How can I serve the world? What is my purpose to the world? Why was I born? All that stuff. I think these are like big questions that people really struggle with, especially when you're feeling like that you're not living. You're doing you're not going, yeah, when you wake up, you're going, oh shit. Yeah. And we've all done.
Well, and then it gets muddled and confused when you add in factors like trying to meet your parents' expectations or society's expectations or pressure from, whatever other outside force is muddying the water and
Yeah.
making it unclear of if you're living on purpose or not.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's for a lot of people, it's kind of a divide between purpose as in the infinite versus the finite
Yes.
for me, because that's like, yes, there's so much purpose in raising children. Like that to me is such great purpose, so honorable. And then you think, well, yes, but there's so many people who may not ever have children, or even the people that do, and their children kind of go off on their own and they're totally separate, or they may not even have a strong relationship with them. And so then you would have to say, well, did I not ever have a purpose, or did my purpose shift? So that kind of takes a person into the whole like, okay, so what is my infinite purpose? Meaning, what is the purpose that I was brought here that goes beyond this lifetime? Like, what am I leaving behind? So that's kind of how the two buckets of purpose
Like the
I've
legacy.
kind of experienced. Yeah. That
Well,
can
and
be still conflicting every day, right?
yes. Well, and what if you raise your children? Well, of course,
Mhm.
you don't have children, but what if you raise your children and then that's over?
Mhm.
Of course, we know we'll always be a mom, but like the hands-on, they're living in the house. So what? Well, I have some feedback.
You do. Are you getting feedback,
I
Melissa?
from myself. I'm talking to myself about my purpose. The voices in my head.
Oh, we can hear them today.
But like if like I'm just gonna just say my story. I raised my children. They're still in the house. They're leaving, and I really loved being a mother. But my life started before them, and it's gonna go on after them. So I that's not my total purpose on this earth, right? And so I think that there are those jobs, and then there are those like soul dedications, but then each
Mm.
person has their individual purpose of why
Yeah.
was I born.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree because, um, yeah, anything that is not eternal is not real. So that wouldn't, I mean, I think if we're defining our purpose, I guess it depends on if we're defining our purpose from a spiritual perspective or not. So while there is really amazing things that can be rippled out and received as benefits and blessings from the act of raising children, there's still an underlying purpose that may be expressing through the act of raising children, but it's still not at the root of what the purpose is. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's
Awesome.
to be truly helpful, or maybe it's to put more love into the world, or to, you know what I'm saying? It's the purpose isn't the raising the children. And I think some people do like wrap their whole identity up into something like that, and then they feel lost when they become empty nesters or there's a falling out with, you know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
getting to what's underneath the the doing is where the real purpose lies.
And I also want to clarify one thing I'm thinking is that this really motherhood could be someone's purpose. I don't know
Mhm.
all the bazillion peoples that have ever walked this earth that motherhood couldn't be at least one person's. Like
Yeah,
it really
Mhm.
could. So I'm a little
Mother
bit
Mary.
not.
I don't know.
What was that?
I said maybe Mother Mary.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah, she had a big
it
purpose.
really could be somebody's purpose.
Mhm.
But in my story, I there's something underneath that, right? There's something else, something more. Not that that's just a little thing, but
Right. Well,
there's
how do you get to that underlying purpose that you're alluding to?
well, I think it goes back to our values and what is fulfilling for me, what brings me joy. And my children definitely bring me joy, but um, I would say they're a component of the bigger part of me being like a fellow human being, a fellow um, part of this universe.
Mm.
Well, and just thinking about what you're saying, Melissa, I think that we can find our purpose. Maybe our purpose is to help others, and that's raising a
Right.
family. Or I think in our whatever it is we're doing, we find our purpose. Like, if we
Yes.
can really see what fuels our actions, like what was it about raising children that you just loved,
Mhm.
and that might help you to
That's
determine
right.
Yeah.
your purpose.
Yeah. I was going to say that when
Mm.
Melissa made the comment about mothering could be someone's purpose.
Hmm.
And that's the first thing that came to my mind, that yes, it very well could be, but there still is probably something about mothering that is true to that person's values and the essence of who they are. And that's why it resonates with them
Right.
so much.
What were your values again, Melissa?
Compassion, simplicity. Well, it didn't take me a half a year to forget them. It just took a week.
Mhm.
Here's my paper.
They're so deeply rooted, you don't have to think about
Yeah,
them.
Yeah. Well, no, but if you think about so compassion, you have to have compassion to be a mother.
sure.
You have
Mhm.
to. You can't be a mother and not have compassion, because I've done that. I love being a mom, but I went out of being compassionate at times when they got on my last nerve. But yeah, so it does align with your values.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I think that purpose and like our goals in life are like very interconnected. And
Mhm.
I think when I quit my job that I had for 17 years, and I, in a lot of ways, felt very identified with that career and with that job, um, I had to really clarify my goals and my life
Mhm.
purpose, because you get a lot of pressure to, like you mentioned something about legacy, Penny, but like you
Mhm.
get a lot of this outwardly worldly pressure to like set up your 5-year goal, your 10-year goal. Um, and so I was like, I don't know my goals, except for I know my spiritual goals, but I don't know my like worldly goals. And I just, the more I sat with, I was like, I don't have to have worldly goals. Like the world will try to tell you that you do, but I don't have to have worldly goals. I can literally just really clarify what my spiritual purposes, what my spiritual goals are, and let those inform everything that I do day in and day out, and just trust the process. And it doesn't have to look like, um, the status quo.
So how do you come to your spiritual purpose?
Well, I think, and now I've got the
I
feedback
heard
and
it.
echo. I don't know what's going on. Um, yeah, I think I've been just kind of journaling about it and adding to it over the past few months, in a more specific and like focused way, but really for the past few years. And one of the spiritual programs that I've taken, we did this sacred contract thing which is where you write your aspiration, your intention, and your goal, and you write it out as a contract between yourself and your higher self. And I think a lot of that is kind of like clarifying your spiritual purpose and your spiritual goals. You know what I mean? And go ahead, Penny.
I was just going to
You look like you want
say,
to say
so that's
something.
like your inner purpose. So your inner purpose or your spiritual purpose is inside, but then we can also have an outer purpose that we are the contributions we're making to the world because hello, we're living in this real world, this tangible world, even though it's all made up, we're still living here. So I think that's our outer purpose that I mean, obviously I want to be loving, I want to be kind, I want to be compassionate to all to all. I was going to say living things, but it's to all, right? Who knows what's living and what's not, right? And then it might show up as that I go out and I coach people to be that as well, and I give presentations to help people to guide them, or I'm part of a podcast with these beautiful Lemonettes, and we're spreading the information out to the world. So yeah, I think that life is a we. I think from my personal opinions, we have to take action when we're given guidance. It's a life. My life is a life of action, and it might be some goals that I've created for myself that I'm taking action on. You know,
And
so
I like how you're talking through that, Penny.
Mm.
It's like it's showing all over your face that you're, because I think this is such a complicated topic, more so than you would think just by talking about purpose. Like when you speak to it in everyday conversation, it's like, seems like an easy question to answer, but it is almost always met with some resistance on some level, right? Like when you were talking about it's almost like the doing versus the being. Is there ever, so the question that came to my mind when you were talking was, is there ever really a purpose in the doing? And does it always, at the end of the day, come down to the being? Like, are widgets important?
well, I think obviously being is the most important, but I think the doing can feed the being, and I get it what you're saying. I
Like,
think I get what you're
are
saying.
we like, does it, so I have a job as an accountant, which could be a very important job. I don't really, for people listening, but if I were, um, and so yes, so I'm an accountant. I have many clients, and I could say that my purpose is to act with integrity, to always be honest and trustworthy. Those are, could be some of my values. But there does seem to be that if that were my purpose and I one day retired or died, the question would be, okay, all that goes away. What if the business just dissolved because I was the only person? Was there truly any purpose in it? Or was it the honesty, integrity that I was demonstrating by being that really carried over?
Love that.
That really was the legacy.
Well, and what just triggered for me the book, the 5 people you'll meet in heaven. Like you don't know if your trustworthiness and your honesty and your integrity as a bookkeeper or accountant, how it impacted others. And you could have changed 100 people's lives just from saying, hey, you guys, you got to honestly fill out these books. You can't do this anymore, or whatever. And so I think it's tied up together, but I'm still willing to listen to unpack more.
Well, I have a thought about it. And I think this is a really juicy conversation. I love it. I think that it's a matter of either the doing dictates the being or the being dictates the doing. And it's your choice of which which you would like, but it has completely different outcomes, I think, because if
A
you're
good point.
led by, yeah, if you're led by everything that has to be done with air quotes, um, then your being might be a little more frantic and a little less connected to that clarity and spiritual insight and love that's always flowing. You might be pinching off that connection in your busyness and in your stress, overwhelm, whatever. But if your being dictates the doing, then it's a totally different outcome. Like, so I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. And I think that's what I was saying. Like, I'm putting all of my focus on my spiritual goals and purposes and values, trusting not to that I would be inert and not take action and just like go live in a cave and meditation for the rest of my life, but that my actions would be inspired from that connection with source that I am prioritizing.
What I think too.
That makes sense, Morgan. Thank you
Mhm.
for clarifying that. Yeah. I love
Thanks for
that. Does your
the
being or your
conversation.
doing dictate
Mhm.
your inspiration or your purpose? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your doing on earth is an expression of your calling or your purpose, your divine
Yeah.
purpose. Um, and I think when you are feeling unstable in that, that is the universe saying, come back to your purpose. You know, you're not living your purpose.
Yeah.
This is not your divine
Mhm.
calling.
Yeah.
And I think a
Have you
lot,
guys had any experiences like that where you realized you weren't living to your purpose?
Well, I will say this. I had a wonderful, career in human resources. Um,
I thought you were an accountant.
disclaimer to that. I was not ever an accountant. However, I was an accounting major in college early on, my first couple of years. But I- what I felt like happened with me is that I had a passion for filmmaking when I was in my 20s, but I didn't pursue that because I was afraid to move to California, right? So I got my degree, went to work in human resources, and I did that for 25 years. I always knew that I was able to express my values while I was working in human resources, um, meaning all the things that all the ways I went about doing that job were true to my values. So it was very rewarding for me from that standpoint. However, when I more recently did give up all of that to pursue a career in film, I feel more spiritually guided, like Morgan was saying. I felt overworked, stressed a lot in working in human resources. Um, and I felt it was a stretch for me, like I was going out of my way to find purpose in it
Mm.
versus what I feel like I was put on this earth to do was to create stories through film.
That's beautiful.
And I think they are different. I think a lot of people are counting widgets, and yes, they can find purpose in counting widgets, but I don't know that that's necessarily what they were put on earth to do. So therefore, it may come with a lot of anxiety or stress or things that they are less likely to be congruent with.
Mhm.
So, have you determined, Drusilla, the key, um, I want to say, takeaways from working 25 years in human resources, how that's actually helping you to create stories through film?
Yes, so many stories, all the
Mhm.
stories, the complexity of people's lives. I mean, I was a recruiter and, so I basically interviewed people for 25 years, you know, everything from starting out as working in a distribution center, you know, interviewing people who were working in a warehouse up until in the end, I was a headhunter. So I was recruiting sales executives and VPs in the medical field. So it was just always about learning people, understanding them, listening to their stories, and having, I don't know, it was just, and it became, that job was so easy for me on that level to connect with people, and the storytelling, receiving the stories and being able to, it was just, it was magical from that standpoint. Um, but the corporate conformity of it and being in the corporate, all of that was so not me. It was so sucking the life out of the person that I
Mhm.
knew I was supposed to be.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can totally
So
relate to that.
I took that job and made it my purpose and my passion, but it still sucked the life out of me. It truly
Mhm.
did.
This makes me think back to the motherhood conversation at the beginning of the call. It's like, what for me, it's why it's so important to identify your spiritual purpose, because what you
Mhm.
do in life is going to change throughout your life. And it doesn't mean that, like, while you were a human resources manager or in human resources, it doesn't mean that you were not living in your purpose for some of that time. um, just like I know that while I was at my last job for 17 years, I know that was divinely guided, and I know that I learned so much from that experience, and I gave so much to that experience, and I know that I was living on purpose through all of that. It's kind of like how relationships come and go in your life, like it's just kind of the seasonality of life. So the purpose wouldn't be a title or a role that shifts and change. It's always something underneath that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So what would you think, what would you say that your purpose is, Drusilla?
I'll tell you, it's one word: to inspire.
Oh,
In other words,
beautiful.
it really has nothing to do with the films that I'm creating, just like it didn't have anything to do with the HR. But I think it's the creativity, which and the contract that I did, Morgan, that was a very, very, one of the very first things that came up for me is, my ability to have an environment that caters to creativity and allows for that, right? Um, but yeah, so I've always known that inspiration is key for my purpose. I was told that as a young person. I would say as a teenager, I had a lot of teachers to say that about me, and I didn't receive it because that was too big, of course, for me to receive. And then I did that. Penny, you probably know the name of the test. I forget. One of those personality tests where
Briar
inspiration,
Smith, Myers Briggs.
Myers,
I said
is it,
Briars.
or is it the disc?
It might be the
Oh, it
disc.
could be
I'm
that.
not
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
And so I always scored extremely high on the I. And people would always say, "Oh, I see that." But I wasn't always ready to walk in that as a purpose. But
Hmm.
I
And
see
what's
it
the
now.
high I?
Yes,
What's the high
it's
I?
inspirational, being
Inspirational.
inspirational. Yeah. So I could never probably make a film if it didn't have the inspirational value to it, and
Oh,
it's a bigger, more profound way of doing it, right? And so that's probably always just been there for me. So I felt stifled in working in HR because I could do it one on one, right? or I could do it in the setting or community I was in, but it still never felt like it was all that I was put here to do.
I love how clear you are about
Yes.
your purpose,
And it's really
Drusilla.
inspiring that
Yes.
you are where you're at today
Yeah, it is.
as this amazing filmmaker.
Yeah. So, Melissa, we haven't heard from you in a minute. Do you know what your purpose is?
Well, I would say to help people end their suffering. And
Wow.
and for me, it my suffering has been self-induced. And through my thinking and my thought, my belief system, and so I think it would be to help other people and suffering with things that they can change within themselves. That's it.
Just
Where are
that.
you? And where are you on that path? Like just that. That is so big. It's beautiful.
And it's needed in this day and
Mm-hmm.
age.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I life was so much more challenging for me because I made it that way. And I didn't realize that I could think differently. I could work, change my thoughts to change my world. And I think um, I was thinking life was happening to me, not just happening. And so
Mm.
um, once when I'm doing spiritual work or self improvement work, I'm always thinking like, how can I teach this? How can I teach this? How can I pass this on to help someone else get out of that suffering? Yeah, change your mind about the world. Yeah. So that's how it
Amazing.
works through me. And I wouldn't say that I've like, oh, I found it and this is the path, but it's that little undercurrent that has been there for forever. Like when we were talking about our values, one of the values that I have dropped, but an older when I was younger, I used to have this justice thing. Like I would go fight everyone's battle for them because they're getting taken advantage of or whatever. And so I think it's always been there in some form or another. But I'm really, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing um, that I don't need to fight other people's battles, that I'm learning ways of living in this world that I can show other people that really make life joyful, rather than living in suffering and pain and thinking is this my beautiful life? Is this my beautiful, like
Well, Melissa, I know the obvious ways that it shows up in your life, like the book club that you lead and being a part of this podcast and facilitating forgiveness sessions. Do you see it translating in your family and in your work life?
oh, yes. Well, I do own a health company, a health and wellness company where we make products to naturally help people overcome pain and anxiety and sleep issues naturally. So, and their physical suffering, so
Mhm.
I do have that. I have
Mm-hmm.
that company. And then I also, I do business advising, and I always end up like, let's try and make this better so you feel better. I kind of end up there with the businesses. So yes, it definitely translates, like Drusilla was saying in her story. It has translated in everything I'm doing.
That's awesome. Thank
That
you.
is so cool.
What
But
about you, Penny?
all those connections. I love all the connections that when you really take a look back, take a step back and take a look at what's going on in your life. It is all divinely guided and everything you're doing. Oh, look at, I raised my hand. Everything, everything you do.
Yes.
Mhm.
is that, yeah.
And I think maybe we all, just let me ramble here. Maybe we all have it. We
Mhm.
just make choices to pay attention to it or not pay attention to it.
Mhm.
Like be
Mhm.
in the flow or like, hey, I know more. Your ego goes, I know more. No, it shouldn't be like that. It's not about helping people. It's about the person with the most money wins. Like I think perhaps we're making choices every day towards our purpose or away from our purpose.
Well, and I
Yeah,
just heard
every instant.
recently
I
someone
agree.
someone said that tell me how you are today and I'll tell you what you did yesterday.
Ugh,
Because what we do yesterday is really
yep.
creating our today, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, I thought that was I don't know if do you guys understand that?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
Um,
I just like to wake up every morning and think that I have a clean slate.
yeah,
Totally. Yep.
that's the best way. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think my purpose, not I think, I shouldn't be thinking about it, right? At 63 years old, I should know what my purpose is. So my purpose has always been to assist people to live their best life, myself included.
That's so
I
clear.
Yep.
yeah, it's always been that like, and yeah, and inspiration is in there too.
Mhm.
Drusilla in mine too. I always wanted to be um, an inspirational and motivational speaker.
I can
That's
see
always
that
been
in you,
my
Penny.
purpose. Yeah,
Yes.
You are.
I
Yes.
am. Yeah.
That's
So that's been a dream, like to travel the world and do
mm,
speeches and stuff. And I'm not quite living that purpose at the moment. And I did for a while. And one of the questions you can ask yourself is like, what really lights you up? And when you're doing that, when you're doing something that really lights you up, pay attention because that's probably something to do with your purpose. And I can tell you when I for a while, a few years back, I was doing a lot of presentations to different companies and stuff. I had so much fun. It was fun. Yeah. And so then, of course, my ego tried to wipe me out. And so then I stopped. But, it's okay. I think we can
Mhm.
rest if we must. We just don't want to quit. Right.
right.
And
Mhm.
so, yeah.
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 Yeah. Every
How
moment
about
you
you,
can choose
Morgan?
again. Oh, I've loved listening to all of yours and what has become clear to me over the past couple of years because A Course in Miracles is a holographic teaching and it's just saying the same thing a million different ways. There's a million different ways that I could state my purpose, and they all mean the same thing. And I think what Drusilla said and what Melissa said and what Penny said are all different ways of saying the same thing. And so I I would say that my purpose is to live the highest and best version of my life with the most like fully expressing the gifts of God, freedom, abundance, joy, peace, love, all the things, and to inspire people from that space and assist others in living the highest and best version of their lives as well. So
I'm
just
going to
like
steal that,
living,
Morgan.
it's
I
the same
love
thing that
that.
you said, basically, just in another way. Yeah.
Oh, I can't steal
No,
it. That's
you
right. I
you
have to live
somehow
from integrity.
magically combined it all together very nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am going to write it down, Morgan, and put it in my journal.
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah. Yes. I love that we get
Yeah.
to amplify each other in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of our group is that we are on this journey together and we can lift each other up. And
Exactly.
it's,
Yes,
I don't know about you guys, but I need that. I need that support.
Uh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I know we should probably be wrapping soon, but does anybody have any like advice or tips to offer any listeners out there who may feel lost or unsure about their purpose?
I think that sometimes you can feel like you're in the jar and you don't even know you're in the jar You can't read the label on the outside because you're inside. And so you don't even realize you're inside, but you can't get out, all that, whatever that, uh, metaphor is. But I think that it doesn't really matter where you are with the purpose. Like if you haven't defined it, if you haven't written it down, if you haven't like solved the puzzle because you're now 60 and you're looking back at everything you did up till now, I think a lot of the times I've been in the jar where I didn't even realize I was in there. I was working, buzzing around, right? Um, Little teeny baby steps, such as what makes me happy? What really makes me happy? Not what kind of makes me happy or what the world says is going to make me happy, but really makes me happy. Um, and just start noting those things. Like just take note, observe yourself, observe when you feel agitated, and observe when you feel like you're in the flow of life. And then just keep, I think, observing and making those situations happen more and more. And then your purpose comes out of that. Your purpose is driving that. Your divine calling is making that happen. But if you're in the jar and you can't figure it out, just start observing yourself, um, and then the actual divine calling will become obvious.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah,
It's
I like that.
really well
Yeah.
said. Really
Well
well
said.
said. I agree exactly with what you said, Melissa. It's really paying attention to what makes you happy. When you feel so excited about what you're doing, that's probably attached to your purpose.
Mhm. Yeah.
And if
Pay attention
you have
and
a
do
hard
more of it.
Yeah, and if you have a hard time, there are people in situations that aren't happy. So, like, maybe happiness isn't all around them, but start with a baby step. And we've talked about this before in our podcast. Like, look at a tree, look at a baby, get on TikTok and listen to a baby just bust out laughing. Like those little things to just start developing more breathing room and space and peace and happiness. And then what fills in that space eventually becomes your divine connection.
Yeah.
And give
And
yourself some grace too if you don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
yes,
I don't have it.
exactly. Well, I think one thing that has been helpful for me as someone who I feel like I'm gifted in some ways, but I don't know what my gifts are very clearly. So sometimes it's been helpful to ask others, like, what am I really good
Great idea.
at?
Yeah,
And you've
yeah.
helped me with that, Melissa. And then like I also love the Gay Hendricks, the zone of incompetence, the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and the zone of genius. Like, where are you spending most of your time? Are you doing things that are in your zone of incompetence or your zone of competence, but that aren't in your zone of genius or your zone of excellence? Like, I think that can be helpful too.
And I love those books too, because it also helps you see why you go back to kind of unhappy situations. Like when you're just starting to peak, sometimes you go back. And as a really good explanation, Gay Hendricks books, it gives you like a little get out of jail free
Mhm.
card.
Yeah. And it's like, so back to Penny's thing about doing versus being, like, yes, tune into the being and the spiritual purpose. But if you're still trying to kind of find your footing in the world, I also am finding like the human design stuff and like astrology and Enneagram and those personality tests that you alluded to earlier, Drusilla, like those kinds of tools can be really helpful because your personality is your operating system in this life. It's what you've got to work with, and you want to work with it, not against it. You don't have to get super swept up in any of these identities. Like, just, think of it as an operating system or, your personality for this life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that, Morgan, because
Mhm.
you can guarantee that whatever your spiritual gifts or talents are, they're going to align well with whatever purpose is out there for you. it will be very, very congruent.
Yeah.
And you will feel it in your body, in your soul, in your mind.
Yes.
Yeah, you will
What,
feel it.
and that's what freedom, that's the real definition of freedom. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Lemonettes, I think we're coming to the close of episode 86. Amazing. 86 episodes. We are on it. So I have a couple of
Yes.
post-its. Know what makes you happy, or know what really makes you
Yes.
happy. That will
Really.
help you with finding your purpose. And then, does your being or your doing guide you?
Love
And they
it.
both might. They both might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's let Drusilla share. Do you want to share your information about how people can view your film?
Well, sure, if I can remember. So I think that, yeah, so my film is being, we're doing screenings right now because we are in the process of determining which outlet or streaming services we're going to use to release the film. So in the meantime, we need people to screen it and give us feedback on it. So you can find it at loe.eventive.org. Eventive is spelled EVENTIVE. So LOE as in loyalty over everything, loe.eventive.org. So please do watch it and give us some feedback. Let us know what you think.
Be inspired.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you find it inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you, listeners, for joining us. Do any of the other Lemonettes have something they want to bring? Okay.
Oh.
I was going to say something and then I realized that doesn't. No, I can't say that. Okay. Anyway.
Is it naughty?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't. No. No, it was all good. It just,
right.
what I was going to say would have already passed by the time I was
I
going to
knew
say
what
it.
she was.
And,
Yeah.
and then it doesn't make any sense to say it today. Anyway, listeners, we love you. We trust that you were able to pick something out of our episode today that can help you with honing in on what your purpose is. And just remember, do what you love and love what you do, and be knowing that the being is really where it's at. But really, be and do what you love. Yeah, truly, that's where the purpose lies, and you'll know it when you hit on it. You'll know it. It'll really resonate with you. So thanks for listening today, and we'll see you next week on another compelling episode. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.